Hi, everyone. Welcome to Psychology and Spirituality, a bridge to a better life discussion. The Psychology and Spirituality weekly talks, as most of you know, are based on the works by Joanna de Angelis, and we're here because we want to offer this safe space to perhaps confront, compare, correlate, and expand spirituality concepts from a psychological lens. And by doing that, bring insights, perhaps some tips, or even real world advice to help you and I have a better life. I am very, very happy to be here today because Rafael Rezende is here with me to talk about health and well being. Rafael's work is a bridge, really, a bridge between traditional psychology and spiritist principles. And he offers a unique perspective on the human psyche and its spiritual dimensions. Hi, Rafael, how you doing?
Hi, Marcia. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. It's a great honor and pleasure to be here today.
Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome. Well, I want to say, Rafael, I really appreciate you being here with us because of your work, right? You have been working and you're able to integrate psychological theories with all the spiritual teachings that you know, and you often lead a discussion to really provide a more comprehensive approach to healing and our own spiritual development. I really want to say thank you. But I wanted to know this topic today is very dear to you. It's very dear to me. It's this notion of holistic health, right? And if I were to go to the dictionary right now, I would say holistic health in a very broad sense, its definition is that it's just an approach to well-being that recognizes and often addresses the interconnectedness of the body, of the mind, and of course the spirit. And so any of individuals like yourself that are working with holistic health, instead of focusing on treating the symptoms, this is Western medicine, right? Treating the symptoms or even looking for the diseases that you're coming to see a healthcare practitioner, but looks into the whole person. What is going on? What is the importance of all areas of any person's life, be it a physical, emotional, mental, social, spiritual, etc. And I love it because with this different approach, now we're talking about achieving really a sense of wellness that touches on, oh, I don't know, lifestyle, preventive measures, natural holistic therapies, etc., etc. So I just wanted to know, what do you want to bring to this attention? What can you perhaps break down this topic into areas that we can better understand health and well-being.
So, again, it's a pleasure to be here. And so, this is indeed a very interesting topic. So, when I think about health and disease, which is, I believe it's something that everybody at some moment in life thinks about. I like to think it in a way that, the body, not only the body, the physical body, but I like to think in a more complete and complex way or a more holistic way, as you just said.
Hmm.
So, and I really enjoy reading Andrea Luis, who is a spirit that through Chico Xavier psychographed or sent so many messages about health and disease. And one of the
So let's
main,
stop here. Let's stop here. For anyone who does not know, Andre Luis is a spiritual author like Joanna de Angelis, right, Rafael?
yes,
And Chic Xavier is one of the most well-known Brazilian medium that brought the teachings dictated to him by Andre Luis. Am I right there?
That's correct. And there's a, especially one of the books that I really suggest and I like. It's although it's not an easy book to read, but it's
Mm-hmm.
very profound, which is called Evolution in Two Words or Evolution in Two Worlds. So
Mm-hmm.
that book actually clarifies many of the questions or answer many of the questions you have about our bodies, our spirits, and how they communicate with each other. And that's one of the points. And obviously, Joanna de Angelis, who is another spirit, but usually she dictates or send her message to our still strong and working Divaldo Pereira Franco. So they somehow they have similarities in terms of thinkings, although Joanna is more like in a psychological way, and Andrea Luis is more like in a medical way. But
Yeah.
you put all together and you get this whole idea what is health, what is disease, what is the body. So I want to
Mm-hmm.
touch base more on this, how your spirit communicates with the body. We can
Yeah.
talk a little bit about some concepts here that some people may have heard of, some people may not have heard of, like perispirit, for example, which is a very nice topic that we need
Yeah.
to clarify for everyone. But
Mm-hmm.
this is the key point to understanding health. So I don't know if you want to add anything here, Marcia, but
Now let's go ahead
yeah,
and go with this discussion of how it all connects. And
yeah,
before you do this, maybe you want to talk about this term. Not everybody is
yeah,
familiar with the term
well,
perispirit, right? So
yeah,
if you could explain, and
yeah.
I think it would be easy.
Yeah, so let's think this way. I'll try to do it in a very easy way for everybody to understand. So, if you can't
Hmm.
get our body, the whole thing, not only our physical body, but us as soul or spirit, we can say for sure you have, let's say, three body or three portions of the body. You have the spirit, which is something we cannot describe yet. We don't know if it's even material, what type of material it is, so we cannot describe. It's more like a flame, a divine flame, as the spirits say. But then we have our physical body, which
Hmm.
everybody know, we can see, we can touch. But the thing is, I like to say in a very simple way, how can you mix water and oil? So we need to have something in between. This
Hmm.
something in between is we call the soap, but in the body is the peri spirit. Peri is around, next to. Spirit is the word spirit. So the peri spirit is another type of a very subtle matter sort of body that involves the whole spirit. And according
Hmm.
to Andrea Luis, the
Hmm.
peri spirit binds molecule to molecule, cell to cell in the body. So that everything, the spirit, let's think about the spirit as this flame,
Hmm.
shining, and then you have the perispirit around it, and the perispirit connecting to the body. So everything we feel in our physical body, eventually in terms of disease, comes from the spirit that transfer this to the perispirit, that eventually transfer this to the body.
So
So
let me
in
see if I got
you
it.
got
If I
yeah,
got it right. So perispirit, number one, it is a spiritist concept, right? It
right,
doesn't mean that it's exclusive to spiritism because the notion of this in between a body is seen in many cultures, Eastern and Western cultures. But anyways, for this discussion here, the spiritist concept perispirit is all about the in between body, right? So it's between
right,
the spiritual body, or many times it's called spiritual body or subtle body, but it's in between the physical, this, right, and the spirit, the soul, and it's the link between the physical and spiritual dimensions. Therefore, is really important when we talk about holistic health. Did I get it right?
Absolutely right. So that's the key point. We have
Mm-hmm.
to stop thinking of the problems of our physical body as something that happens um, out of nowhere, just at that moment. It's,
Mm-hmm.
the body responds to everything that is inside. The body responds to your mind. The body responds to your spirit. So that's
Mm-hmm.
the biggest point, because the spirit, it's constantly vibrating, as
Mm-hmm.
everything in the world and the universe is about energy and vibration. So, and you have different levels, or I can say different frequencies of vibration,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that some, as you can, let's say a simple example, the light we see, it's an electromagnetic force, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a
Yeah.
wave length, there is a frequency, but there's even higher or lower frequencies that we cannot see. So the spiritual world is based on this electromagnetic force that we cannot see, and unfortunately we cannot detect yet. Yet. So the point is, we are constantly vibrating, and you need to, I mean, you probably agree with me that if you are a person who is suffering a lot, you are hurt, you are depressed, you vibrate in one frequency that is really different from someone who is happy, joyful, enjoying life, right? So when you vibrating in this low frequency of depression, of sadness, of hate, in that case, your spirit is the source of all this vibration. It's constantly vibrating in that low, sick frequency.
Yeah, and
Eventually,
sorry to interrupt again, Rafael, but I always like to say, sadness, right? Which many of us have moments of sadness
yeah,
or fear or even anger. It does not mean that you're sick.
no,
It just means that you are reacting to an external
right.
impulse or external driver that sparks or drives or triggers an emotional response.
And that's
It
what I want
is
to,
okay.
sorry to interrupt, but that's what I want to get right now. So the thing is, the
Hmm.
perispirit is so malleable that it
Hmm.
can be hit so many times without any consequence to your physical body. That's what you're saying. If you're sad because you're responding to something, we everybody during the day have sadness periods and
Hmm.
happy periods, sad and happy periods. That's not what's going to cause disease, but is how much time you spend in your life vibrating in that frequency. And that's what eventually your perispirit, this in between body,
Hmm.
will get saturated, overwhelmed with those vibrations, and then you get a sort of a lesion in that spiritual body. That
Hmm.
lesion needs to be expelled out, right? And where it's gonna go? To your physical body.
Yeah.
So this is the point where you're talking, which is really important. It doesn't mean that if you're sad, if you're crying right now, something, it happens. You lose someone, right, from your family. It doesn't mean you're sick. The thing is more like how long you keep vibrating in hate, in sadness. This is what actually is going to drive these lesions in your perispirit, which is not going to, by the way, be reflected immediately in your body, but
Hmm.
will eventually reflect to your body. So those are some concepts, and I can even exemplify in a simple way. For
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
what happens when we are stressed in your work, for example, during the week? You have so much work, your boss is somehow driving you crazy, your mates are driving you crazy, and you're stressed, so much work. So then by the end of the week, You said, "Oh, today's Friday. I'm gonna go and spend my weekend." And then you wake up at Saturday. You have a cold. So what happened? Why did you got a cold right on the weekend, which is your time to rest? It's because the whole week you're so stressed out that you somehow diminished the ability of your immune system to fight infection. And at that
Mm,
point, by releasing too much cortisol, which by the way is the hormone of the stress, you
yeah,
shut down your immune system. When you shut down your immune system, you give room to virus, bacteria, and all these parasites, microorganisms to proliferate in your body. So then you get sick. Some people
yeah,
develop the what's the name? The sore, cold sore,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
When it's stressed, it's the same
yeah.
process. So shingles,
I
it's another
yeah,
thing.
I know. Yeah, shingles. I know somebody who we're both starting a new job. This is many years ago, and we traveled abroad for this work. And she called me up and she said, "I can't. You have to do it all by yourself." I says, "What happened to you?" So she just showed it to me under her shirt in the back.
Yeah,
Everything was this plaque of a reaction, right? To and she told me later this was stress related. And there's one thing that's really important, because we have what it takes to fight against whatever,
yeah,
but it's really important to be nice to ourselves, right? Rafael, it's really we don't. And one thing that comes to our mind is the fact that stress is cumulative. So
mhm,
I may be stressed at work because I have a deadline that is getting too close, and then I don't know, uh, a friend of mine is getting divorced, and I'm feeling really sad or anxious about her situation, and then my neighbor is not doing so well and asks me to take care of the dog. I don't know. Those are all hypothetical situations, but it just keeps coming no matter how big or small. They keep adding up, and then at some point you are unable to fight those stresses on your own,
exactly.
right?
I have a student, for example, that I know
Mm,
exactly when I should approach her because she's going
mm.
through tough moments. She's always, when something happens, she gets sick. It's a cold,
Oh,
it's a cold sore, it's something is happened. Then I come and say, "Hey, come to my office, let's talk. What's going on?"
yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah,
release all that, that burden, and she gets
yeah.
better.
Yeah,
So
and it could be a coping mechanism, right? We could, it could be, I'm not saying it is or it is not. It could be a coping mechanism where unconsciously you're trying to be sick so you cannot deal with the stressor. But I think it's important for all of us to be kind to each other, really be kind, because our bodies end up really accessing all the pain points and all the triggers, et cetera, and it's materialized through diseases, right?
yeah, and then it comes to another important concept is that
Mm,
when we talk about these chronic debilitating diseases, for example,
yeah,
autoimmune diseases or
yeah,
cancer,
yeah.
uh, that everybody knows about, either have it itself, themselves, or have someone in a family going through this.
Hmm.
So, one thing that we always think of is like, I want to get rid of this disease. This is
Yeah,
killing me. But in fact, I just want to give you another perspective of
yeah.
this. Instead of looking at the disease in your body as something really bad, you just can look at it as something that is healing your spirit. Because it's exactly
Wow, this
the,
is a very interesting concept, everyone. So look at what's ailing me, not as the reason for me not to feel well, but actually it is addressing underlying current that is so, I think I would say deep buried in our psyche, that were
Exactly.
hiding from us, and we need to get quote unquote sick of the body so that we can address what is underneath,
Yes,
right?
and that's why, exactly, that's why you see in the gospel, according to the Spiritism, for those who didn't see,
Mm-hmm.
or even in the gospel itself, you can see Jesus
Mm-hmm.
many times of the Spirit saying that, it is important to accept those moments and thank God because somehow you are getting, you're expelling all this um, sickness from
Mm-hmm.
your soul to your body. And
Mm-hmm.
the point is, our true life is not actually here in the physical world, but
Yeah.
actually it is in the spiritual world. So when you get there after going through a very severe and debilitating disease, you reach your spirit. It's, I would say, shining way more than if we hadn't experienced all this process throughout life. So that's a different perspective that can bring a little bit of comfort and maybe even joy to people who
Yeah.
are at this exact moment going through tough times in life with the severe disease.
Yeah. I know somebody, and this is it's really, really even hard to utter out loud, but since we're talking about it, it's somebody who was planning his own suicide for 5 years. And then he got cancer, and everything changed. And not just talking about, I can't deal with life anymore, I'm going to stop it, I'm going to do something about it, to, oh, life is evading me, let me heal myself. And it's just very interesting because um, he's someone who's far away from me, where I live right now. So I could see photos throughout the whole treatment, pre and post surgery, whenever this person was smiling, almost as in knowing somehow that throughout the difficult, because it's very challenging times when we have to go through either surgery or chemotherapy, radiotherapy, etc., right? But I always looked, and he was just this face of I'm so happy,
Yeah,
right? There's this happiness about him, and he is cancer free now. So very, very interesting how life somehow does exactly that, which is quite a paradox if you think about it. Right?
exactly. Yeah. But I mean, if you think about Jesus and everything he taught us,
Mm-hmm.
many of them are paradox. But because you
Yeah.
don't actually go deep into the
Mm-hmm.
teaching, and that's one of the deepest things we can think of when Jesus say, "Well, I mean, you have to thank God for your disease, your problems, right?"
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's exactly what's happening. You have a friend who had a suicidal thoughts, but eventually he
Yeah.
was healed by a cancer
Yeah.
that everybody's afraid of,
Yes.
and
Yes.
he was healed not from the cancer, but he was healed spiritually, which
Yes.
is the key point that the disease came exactly for that purpose, and he got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the point. That happened to my dad too. So
Yeah.
my dad was a pretty tough man.
Mm.
He raised me and my brother very strict way, very severe. He used to have a very loud voice that so he would dominate everybody around, including
Mm-hmm.
my mom, with
Yeah.
his voice. But eventually he got a cancer in his throat and he
Oh,
couldn't speak anymore.
that's really sad though to hear.
It's sad to hear, but after
Mm-hmm.
8 years battling the cancer that eventually went through his lungs and caused his death, but
Mm.
in his final moments, you could see the smile that he's actually was healed from all that whatever anger he had inside.
That he projected right through his loud voice. I can imagine that. Yeah,
Exactly, that's the point.
yeah,
But because he couldn't speak for 8 years, he had to
mm,
listen to everybody,
yeah,
and then he
yeah,
calmed down. So the disease was just for that, just to bring him peace and say,
Mm-hmm.
well, listen to the world. And
Yeah.
that's what he did. And he passed
Yeah.
away, and surely he's fine now. So um, that's how it is, and that's for all sort of diseases.
Yeah. Let me ask a little bit. I don't know if you have any opinions to this, Rafael, but we often talk about Eastern and Western medicine and how the West treats disease and the Eastern medicine treats health. One, in the case, right, we're both in the Americas, right? In the West, we are only diagnosing, right, through images or whatever it is that is the instrument to diagnose the code in the sickness, and then of course a treatment for the diagnostics that is often, as we mentioned, treatment of the symptoms, not the real root
Right.
cause of it all. And then Eastern, where I understand, and I may be wrong, but I understand that healers and doctors are paid to treat you to stay healthy. And if you get sick, then it's up to them, almost like a warranty on a product. They're there they're not paid, it's the warranty. So they go back to treat you until restore your balance, your health, your well-being, etc. And so it's a very different approach. But most importantly, one of the key areas that I believe is the differential is one, in the West, relies a lot on, especially in the US, right? Where we as patients are relying more and more on this magical pill that will address
Right.
whatever it's ailing me. Whereas in and I say even in Europe as well, or in the case in Eastern countries, it is all about restoring the balance so that your body is able to address what's going on.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
that's exactly right. So I like to give an example. It's like you have a throat infection, a bacterial
Mm-hmm.
infection, and you're just taking anti-inflammatories. So
Yeah.
you're not treating the cause of the disease, which is the
Mm-hmm.
bacteria, but you're treating the symptoms. So what happens? You may get some relief, of course, but it's gonna
Yeah.
come back and come back even worse.
Yeah.
So that's the same approach. So I believe that in the future, and I hope in the near future,
Mm.
medicine will be personalized. So
I
and more,
love that. Right?
yeah, more like the Eastern way, but you're gonna
Yeah.
treat the person as a whole.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
for example, you go to doctor, which any specialty, he only knows about that. So, but forgets about the whole thing. And they, most importantly, they forget what caused that problem. And the problem may not be in that specific joint or in that specific bone or in lungs or in your heart, but it could be
Mm.
actually in your spirit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what needs to be treated.
Yeah.
Right.
And if I go back to what you said about the future of medicine, where you're treated as a customized, unique, one off, right? Even though we're all part of the human race. And for example, we start to understand today that gender and other differences in treatment based on gender and
Right.
based on race, right? Based on age, for example, if you are elderly, it's a very different approach than adult life, or even the young ones. So if we start to going more and more into the singularity of each individual, I love that idea that we could have a one of a kind treatment of each one of us. 8 billion people in a planet, and there will be 8 billion blueprints for how to be healthy. Love that
Yeah,
idea.
and that actually explains lots of failures in treatment. So if you have a two different person with the same type of cancer, for example, and you
Hmm.
treat them exactly the same way, one gets healed, the other one dies.
Yeah,
Why is that?
yeah. What
Right?
are your
So that,
thoughts? Do you have any theories, Rafael,
well,
on
yeah, well,
on?
the theory is like what actually caused the disease. So
Mm,
when you try to fix only what you're seeing in the body, for some
yeah,
people, the ones that get healed is because it got healed spiritually,
yeah, yeah,
even inconsciently. But the ones that did not get healed and eventually pass away, I mean, the
yeah,
problem wasn't treated to the source of the cause,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
it means like the doctors, they need to go and talk to you and understand you, like maybe
Mm,
spend 2 hours talking to you, investigating your life, get to the
mm,
point where it should be really
yeah,
treated. Then you use the medication to help,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So that's where I believe soon is going to get there.
Yeah, love it, love it. Can I change a little bit of the subject because I think I love to hear your thoughts or if you've worked with the idea of gratitude or even positive thinking for um, emotional healing, which subsequently leads to a physical health. Have
Yeah.
you have you done any studies of that, Rafael?
So one thing that is important when you think about, like, you hear a lot in the medicine
Mm,
say you are or we are what we eat, but it's a way
sure.
deeper than that. We are
Uh-huh.
what we think. That's the key
True.
point.
Yeah.
So thinking, it's according to Emmanuel, which is who's another spirit, was the
Mm,
mentor of Chico Xavier. For those who don't know, but Emmanuel, in one of his books, now I have to recall the name in English, but it's like Thinking and Life,
yeah.
something like that.
Thought in
Thought,
life.
thought and life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's gonna be talking about mind and thought.
Yeah.
So when we as human beings we feel, when you feel, we develop thinking, we develop thoughts. So if you feel most of the time bad, your thoughts are not going to be good.
Yeah.
So the bad thinking will actually affect how your perispirit respond to these vibrations and frequency I just mentioned at the beginning of our conversation. And
Hmm.
eventually this is going to reflect to the body. So we don't need to do so many studies to see that. But if you think about how many people get sick after a major stress in their life, and
Yeah.
even I'm thinking about cancer, for example, many people
Hmm.
go through a tough process, for example, divorce or losing someone in the family they really love, and few months later they develop, for example, a colon cancer.
Yeah.
So that's, you don't need to go too deep into that studies to see how these things happening. So that's a point where, if you are what you think, if you think bad things, that's what you're gonna
Mm,
be,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's how your body is gonna show.
So if I were to just add a little bit in this idea of not just positive or negative, but just thinking, right?
Mhm.
And how your thoughts overarchingly will impact our emotional health, and how the thoughts can also re reconnect or re-educate, if you will, our emotional state, therefore our health. But I think it's very interesting because we live in a society where we are bombarded by data, right? By I guess the best example would be social media, where it just keeps coming to us, not just data points or facts, but also um, flashes of this versus that that start to touch us emotionally, right? Oh, my dream. I'm just kidding here, but my dream was to climb the Everest, right? And I could never do it, but then I could see in social media that the person that I really dislike is actually there. Therefore, there's that triggers my jealousy or resentment or even anger for this person. And those depending on how strong, and we talked a lot about it before, but depending on how strong those emotional reactions are, it can really lead to some psychosomatic disorder. And this is, and I'm judging here, there's a bit of judgment. But then if you're going to the other spectrum for positive thinking, right? Or a frame of mind, a almost like an emotional re-education of how we respond to events in your life, etc., which will lead to a very different outcome. And I'm thinking here, Rafael, maybe if we can talk a little about what are the some of the practices that we may have. For example, if somebody, I don't know, mistreats me, if we practice patience, tolerance, or even forgiveness, how does it impact my health? What are your thoughts?
Wow, it just, balance everything out. So the
Hmm.
point is, how can we manage this? We know
Yeah.
it's good. We know it. But how can
Hmm.
we do it? So it's a practice.
Hmm.
I can tell you what I do. So one of the things, it may sound weird, a little weird, but that's the truth. So
Yeah.
I went to a point in my life where I start thinking about exactly what you said. Okay, if someone, you know, does something to me that I don't like, how can I, practice my patience, tolerance,
Yeah.
and all this? So then I said, oh, the best way to do before, I'm just gonna do a little training here, practice here. So I start to watch, for example, movies or shows on Netflix, for example, that would kind of trigger the sort of things on me. And then I
Yeah.
start thinking, okay, so I'm watching a crime sort of show, and
Mm.
everybody's gonna be crying and hating the guy who does the crime. But
Yeah.
I would just change the perspective again and start to thinking, why is he doing this? What happened?
Interesting. Yeah.
What if he was doing this to me? How would I behave? And
Yeah.
practicing that. And eventually, life, next day you wake up and you go to work, something happens. And then is the time where, oh, let me practice this now. So someone is just
I
mad at
love
me.
it.
So,
Yeah.
it seems silly but and weird, but that's, it's being work with me. And another thing that it's really critical, and I know everybody heard of, it's meditation,
Yeah.
right? So meditate, it's really critical. I myself, I don't do it every day, I confess, but
Hmm.
when I feel like I need it, it's the time
Hmm.
where I just get I like to meditate in the dark. So I
Yeah.
just, turn all the lights off in my bedroom, and I put my phone and I start listening to nice, sometimes guided meditation, and that helps a lot. So I think another point that I always use is, okay,
Hmm.
so I'm just in front of some situation that I need to take a decision. I can be
Hmm.
mad at that person or not. What would Jesus do?
I
Would he
love it. Yes.
or
Yeah.
not? So
Yeah.
that's my guide. Always Jesus. In every single decision I have to make, I think about Jesus. What would he do in my if he was in my shoes, on my shoes now? Would he do that or not? So obviously, most of the time is not what I want to do at that time. And then I have to say, okay, let's slow down and try to be better. right? So that's
There's
the
a
point.
there's a little bit of when you say about what would Jesus do, and I could say if I listen to you, says, but Raphael, I'm not Jesus, okay? Don't come with this idea. What would Jesus do? Because I am not. But the question here in different words would be how would somebody who is infinitely or much more wise than you would be doing the same situation, right? And I think that's it. What would your parents do? What would your the most ideal person that you project? And we all have some heroes, right? In my mind, my all times hero is Nelson Mandela. So Nelson Mandela, who was not just a peaceful all the time, he had a very troubled youth, and then goes into prison for almost 3 decades, and he's tortured. He is put to a lifetime of abuse, and walks out and can lead a nation through a transformation that was unheard, un, unpredictably executed by this former prisoner. And so I would say, what would Mandela say? What would Mandela do? How would
Yeah,
Mandela react? Or
but
another figure, right? The Dalai Lama or Martin Luther King. Just pick your role
yeah,
model
so
in addition to Jesus, right? How would they do it? I am sure they're much better than I am, right?
that's the thing. So one of the
Yeah.
the, the problems of that is like, are you wise enough to find your
I'm
hero?
not.
But you know, with all the social media, that
Yeah.
people begin to get heroes,
Mhm.
people who are actually not heroes.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I,
So
I
we
think
need,
we can pause here to
yeah,
talk about who, like, right? Just a moment before you say, follow what Mercy is saying, follow a hero. But who are your heroes?
exactly.
And if you follow blindly, are they leading you to the right place? So good catch. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's why Jesus will never fail you because
Yeah,
it's always good things. I know it seems like
yeah,
really far away, but
yeah.
he said, you can do whatever I do and much more.
That's right.
I
That's right.
repeat it, you can do whatever I do
Mm.
and much more. So which
Yeah,
means that it only depends on us. That's as simple as this. And why we
yeah,
cannot do it? Because it's better to be living in pleasures and all these things in the world and
yeah,
party, and
yeah,
it's easier, right? But
yeah,
when you decide to actually follow Jesus or any motto or hero you have that is actually truly wiser,
yeah,
then things need to change.
yeah.
And it's not,
Now, yeah, now you're talking about Jesus, and Jesus, of course, is our leader, especially if you are Christian in this world. And if we can change a little bit to talk about that spiritual health as this cornerstone of us achieving well-being, right? So what am I talking about? It's really about accessing faith, right? Your faith in this higher power. And I say that because I could say God, I believe in God, but it could be your higher power,
right.
right? And how this religion or this connection, right? Religion in Latin is just, which is religare, it's to relink, go back to a moment where there was a very strong bond between you and God. So let's get back to that sense of a union of connection with God, and how it can indeed help all of us find meaning, right, in what we're going through. I think you mentioned before, and I mentioned the friend of mine who has had cancer, and I'm really happy that he's no longer right? He's in cancer's remission, but how that suffering, when we look from a different eyes, you can see the good in the suffering, right? Good, see the good in the disease itself, but this goes really, we could say, transcends the notion of disease. It transcends to all of our lives. If we can always look at the meaning of everything we go through as there's a reason, there's a purpose that is pushing us to be better spirits, right? To go through our spiritual evolvement or evolution in a way that is positive. So look at life events, crises, disease from that perspective changes everything, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that's the
Yeah.
whole point here. I think if we need to leave a take home message to everyone who is listening to
Yeah.
us now, is like try to change the perspective of how you see health and disease. So
Yes.
change
Yes.
a little bit of focus. And then your
Yes.
life, even though you're going through hell, your life is going to be heaven. So there's no
Yeah.
other,
I
right?
love
And
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's the point, and that's actually the real meaning of peace. Peace is
Hmm.
not tranquility. Peace is when everything outside is falling apart or breaking apart, but you are strong and happy inside. So
Oh,
that's what peace means.
oh, wonderful. We're going to close here, Rafael, and I already invite you to come back at a later time. But I just wanted to say, I'm going to quote, not quote, but I'm going to reference Joanna de Angelis because some of her work on health and well-being brings that notion, indeed, of a holistic process and the notion that emotional, mental, and spiritual health are as important as our physical health. And for us, everyone out there, for us to achieve this sense of well-being, we must go beyond the physical symptoms, right? They can be addressed quite rather easily most of the times, but also look for what are the emotional, spiritual root causes of what we're going through, our distress calls, if you will. And the other thing that we find in the body of work that is brought to us by Joanna de Angelis is the notion that we must take responsibility for our own health, right? How do we do this? Well, this journey through self-awareness, self-knowledge, inner transformation, right? Consciousness. I think we mentioned the idea of really nurturing and cultivating positive thoughts, right? And really put in check our emotional response to look at it from a positive side. And I think she also mentioned, Raphael, the notion of this we must, all of us must foster our own spiritual development through practices, religious practices such as having a strong faith, prayer. You mentioned meditation. We can talk also about acts of charity in service of others, right? So I just want to say this before we go, that the teachings that we're sharing here, that we're talking about here, are just a reminder that true health, yours and mine, is really all about inner peace, inner balance, in that harmony between body, mind, and spirit. But before I go, I would be remiss if I didn't say that if this is the first time you're watching this podcast program, please do note that our program, the weekly talks on psychology and spiritualities, are here to provide that safe space. And today's episode is brought to us by our friends at Mansão do Caminho. at the United States Spirits Federation, um, with the International Spirits Council and AMI Brazil. Please make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't done so. And if you have any questions, any feedback, any critique, any ideas on this topic, please send your note. Would love to talk about it and address it next time. Thank you so very much. It's such a pleasure talking to you, Rafael.
Thank you so much, Marcia, and thank you everyone for watching us.